Milo Murphy's Law is a TV show on Disney XD and Disney Channel. It's about a small boy named Milo Murphy, voiced by Weird Al Yankovic, who lives his life in a cyclone of calamity due to the concept of Murphy's Law, which follows him everywhere. Along the way, it devolves into pistachio time travel weirdness. It was a very good show, a personal favorite of mine, in its first season. At the end of season 1, we meet a character by the name of Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. You may have heard of him. His appearance confirms something that many sharp-eyed viewers had already figured out. Milo Murphy's Law is set in the same city as Phineas and Ferb. This was really exciting at first. A shared universe? A crossover? A chance to see our favorite beloved characters again 4 years after the show ended? Nice! Or is it? Let's find out. So season 2 starts out with the Phineas and Ferb effect, the 1-hour crossover event that picks up right where the last episode left off. Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz is revealed to be Professor Time, inventor of time travel. Now, let's stop right here. This is one of my biggest problems with the direction of the series. Time travel has already been done at this point in the series. First of all, Xavier Onassis. Now, that could be forgiven as he went forward to the year 2036 and stayed there, never patenting his machine, never proving that he even traveled through time. At the current point in the series, nobody knows that he finished his time machine. I'm cool with this being overlooked for now, especially if it was something they wish to elaborate on later. But I don't think they will. Anyway, Phineas and Ferb themselves have already traveled through time, to both the past and future. Like, okay, sure, they didn't patent it either, and the mysterious force probably wouldn't let them even if they tried. It's cool. It feels like Doofenshmirtz taking credit for the work of 3 other people before him, and none of them even trying to contest it as he profits off of it and even merchandises his likeness. I don't like it. It just reeks of ignoring established lore more than anything else. Whatever arguments you can make for why we should ignore the previous 2 parties who invented time travel shouldn't matter. Like, hear me out here. Why should we have to make mental leaps of judgment just to figure out why, in a show that pats itself on the back for referencing its own lore, and that encourages us to keep a sharp eye, this could even make sense? It's one thing to try and do something new and forget about your past work, and it's another thing entirely to have a shared universe tied together with little clues. But you can't do both. This is them trying to have their cake and eat it too, and it really doesn't make sense, because you cannot have it both ways. Those are complete contradictions. Another problem I have with Doofenshmirtz being Professor Time at all is the way it just seems to completely undermine his arc. Phineas and Ferb was a show about seizing the day, about accomplishing things through effort and teamwork, and here we have Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz just waiting to become Professor Time, waiting for something to happen that will finally make him great. Doofenshmirtz was always a clueless yet brilliant man who had the capacity to help people himself. We saw this multiple times throughout the run of P&F. He was always genuinely good, but with a hefty amount of spite and a feeling of obligation to his backstories. A man hurt by society with nothing left to lose, trying desperately to conquer the tri-state area. And we saw him soften up over the course of the series, due to his relationships with Perry the Platypus, Vanessa, and Norm, and to a lesser extent Major Monogram. Doofenshmirtz didn't need an entire TV series for him to have a redemption arc. His redemption arc was the entirety of Phineas and Ferb. We just didn't see him realize or accept it until the last day of summer. He has already been redeemed. And for that matter, trying to do this arc and not even using Vanessa or Norm, it feels like an insult to their characters. They've each had 1 cameo over the course of the season so far, and that alone feels like a crime to me. I have to say, though, more than anything else, the reason Doofenshmirtz is so unbearable in season 2 is just that he's completely taking over the show. A good example to give would be the classic Simpsons episode, The Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie Show. In that episode, Itchy and Scratchy is failing, so executive meddling leads to the addition of a new, cooler character to capture the ratings. Of course, it goes horribly wrong because the character's writing just sucks and he's conquering the show and ruining its established formula. That is the vibe Doofenshmirtz gives off. A Poochie. However, despite Milo's less than stellar viewership in Season 1, the Poochie-ish vibes of Doofenshmirtz don't strike me as executive meddling or even a ratings trap. I truly believe this was in fact planned from an early stage. I just think it's a terrible, terrible idea. You see, before Phineas and Ferb ended, a couple of episodes were produced as backdoor pilots, both of which starring Doofenshmirtz and focusing on his redemption arc. These were Doof 101 and The Auca Files. Now, neither of those are canon, apparently, due to what he's doing in Milo Murphy's Law, which is honestly a tragedy because him being a schoolteacher leading a bizarre double life as a secret agent would be way more entertaining than this, but that's neither here nor there. Point is, Disney passed on them. Disney passed on the idea of doing a show about Doofenshmirtz's redemption in favor of doing a show about Milo Murphy. And to spend a season with Milo, acquainting us, the audience, with him, and then just throwing him away to do a completely different show that was passed on twice, well, that's just disappointing. I can't help but feel a little betrayed, lied to. This is no longer the show I was promised for a whole season. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Doofenshmirtz himself isn't the only problem I have. The Phineas and Ferb effect featured the titular Phineas and Ferb effect, which states that everything goes right for Phineas and Ferb, which on the surface just sounds exactly like the mysterious force. But here's the problem with that. Not everything goes right for Phineas and Ferb. While it has been established that they have a positive Stinkelkrampen field, that doesn't mean that everything automatically goes right for them. Stinkelkrampen is a concept introduced in the Season 4 episode Just Our Luck. It's basically a Drizzlestinian word for luck and karma. This episode establishes that everything has a positive or negative energy field, a concept elaborated on in the effect, but it doesn't ever go so far to say that everything goes right just because Phineas and Ferb have a relatively positive one. One only has to look at one of the most popular and iconic episodes of the series to see that. Summer Belongs to You is a shining example of things going just plain wrong for Phineas and Ferb. Their plane continues to break down until it's nothing but a map and a single rubber band. And many, many other episodes feature things just screwing up. The Mysterious Force, on the other hand, was more so focused on specifically keeping Phineas and Ferb's big ideas hidden from their mother. It was more about Candace failing than Phineas and Ferb succeeding. While characters like Candace and Doofenshmirtz certainly have worse luck, I feel like it totally undermines Phineas and Ferb's triumphs in the face of adversity to say that it was just a universal law that causes them to succeed. Time and time again, we see these well-rounded, dynamic characters that have their ambitions, their victories, their characterization just thrown out the window to make Season 2 work. And it doesn't work. Season 2 as a whole just doesn't work. Even episodes without Doofenshmirtz tend to be less entertaining, less memorable than Season 1. There have been a handful of fun ones, and despite my problems, I still find it hard to say it's a completely bad show, because it's not. Most episodes still do have multiple parts that will solicit a laugh. I still do find the characters very fun and engaging. It's just less fun. Following Phineas and Ferb, a goddamn masterpiece, and something I would consider to be among the most culturally significant works of the 21st century, we get this mediocre show that's not even trying to step out of its shadow. For that matter, some episodes are even worse despite no Doof involvement. I've already complained about it a lot, but I can't not mention the episode that bothered me the most. Lady Krillers. In this episode, Milo is upset that they're making an all-female reboot of Krill Hunter, a movie series he likes. Not only is this a completely tasteless and dated commentary on Ghostbusters 2016 and the like, they also think it's a good idea to disguise Tobias Trollhammer, star of the series, as a woman to get him a part in the film. What follows is 11 minutes of uncomfortable, mild transphobia. It's nothing seriously offensive or bad. When I say mildly uncomfortable, I really do just mean mildly uncomfortable. It's something that feels out of place in modern television. In a bad way. It bothers me a lot for obvious reasons, but it's really nothing bad enough to be outraged over or anything. It's just a normal level of cis nonsense. It just shows more than anything a kind of ignorance, a lack of interest in what their audience really wants. And this culminates in the most unintentionally meta line that describes the attitude of the entire season.
We do what we want with no regard to plot or character or making sense to the people watching the confusing stuff cabbage tree vacuum cleaner.
And that's just one episode. So much of season 2 is just full of plots that go nowhere and random weirdness for weirdness' sake. That sort of thing worked in Phineas and Ferb, but here it just sort of feels like they're not as fun. Things like the Goulash Man and Recurring Raccoon just sort of come out of nowhere and don't do anything. And they feel kind of out of place and with no purpose. I guess that's the joke, but it's just not really funny. If all of this weird stuff were leading into something bigger, it might be neat, but it just doesn't feel like it. Season 2 just feels like a bunch of wasted potential. As the season continues and the plot develops, who knows if they can fix these problems or if it's going to crash and burn, but one thing is certain, Murphy's Law states that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And well, this is one show that must go wrong.